All right, I'm going to kick it off. It is 11:02, so we're going to get this 11 o'clock webinar started. First off, I want to say good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you here for this session where we're going to explore how people are actually using ChatGPT in the real world, just from work tasks to everyday problem solving. Before we dive in, I'm going to quickly introduce our team here. I am Justin with Ontech, Business Development Manager. I am joined here by our Director of Business Development, Scott Nielsen, and Thomas Bry, our Business Development Specialist. Together we bring a mix of experience in our IT from our time in IT consulting, and we're just excited to guide you through today's discussion. I do want to acknowledge our sources. Much of the data and insight we'll be referencing today comes from a recent working paper titled How People Use ChatGPT. It's by Aaron, I'm going to butcher these last names, Chatterjee, Thomas Cunningham, David Demzing, Zoe Hitzig, Christopher Ang, Carl Jan Schan, and Kevin Wadman. There's some crazy names. So this paper was actually published last month, September of 2025, and we just built this webinar around their research findings, and we just kind of deeply appreciate the work they've done to help us better understanding the evolving role of AI in everyday life. Kick us off to slide 2, a little background. We're going to start with the launch of ChatGPT. It launched in 2022 and it grew quickly to 700 million users weekly in 2025. Currently, there are 2.5 billion messages that are exchanged weekly. These messages extend from just tasks like writing, coding, decision support, and even just some personal productivity stuff. And it's important to note this review of how people are using AI centers around ChatGPT. It is an AI tool that powers Microsoft AI tools like Copilot. Into slide 3. So let's take a closer look at how this study was conducted and why it's relevant for small and medium-sized businesses like yours. First, this was the very first large-scale analysis of how people actually use ChatGPT. It's not based off of surveys or just assumptions. It actually uses real message data from users across the world. The researchers focused on consumer level usage, meaning they looked at people using ChatGPT on the free, plus, and pro plans, not enterprise or business accounts. And this gives us a good sense of how individuals interact with the tool in both personal and professional contexts. Importantly, the study used a privacy preserving approach. So no human ever saw like the actual messages. Instead, they just used like an automated classifier to analyze message intent, topic, and work relevance. So this means the findings were both robust and ethically sound. So for small businesses, this matters because it shows how everyday users, just like your employees, are leveraging AI tools like ChatGPT to get work done, solve problems, and even learn some new skills. The insights from this study can help you understand where AI fits into your workflows and how to encourage smart and secure adoption across your teams. So this slide kind of outlines the core questions the researchers set out to answer, which are relevant for small and medium-sized businesses exploring any kind of AI adoption. First, they wanted to understand how people are actually using ChatGPT, not just what they say they use it for, but what the data actually shows. This includes both work-related and personal use cases. Second, they asked who is using ChatGPT. The study breaks down usage by age, gender, education level, occupation, and their geography where they are. This helps us understand, the demographics that are driving adoption and just how usage patterns vary across the groups. And third, and most importantly for business leaders, the study explores what economic value ChatGPT provides. It looks at how ChatGPT supports decision-making, productivity, and task execution, especially in knowledge type intensive roles. So these questions help frame ChatGPT not just as like a novelty, but as a tool with real business impact. For small to medium-sized businesses, this means understanding where AI can fit into your workflows and how your team might actually be using it informally. Slide. Rapid growth. This slide highlights just how quickly ChatGPT has scaled globally and why that matters for small and medium-sized businesses. First, ChatGPT reached 700 million active users by July of 2025. That's nearly 10% of the world's adult population using it every week. For a technology, this level of adoption has never been seen before. Users are sending 18 billion messages per week, which translates to roughly 29,000 messages per second. This shows not only widespread adoption, but also just deep engagement. And interestingly, the fastest growth has come from low-income countries, which kind of suggests that ChatGPT is filling gaps in access to information, education, and productivity tools, something small to medium-sized businesses can relate to when resources are limited. It's becoming a core tool for communication, decision-making, task execution across industries. So if you're not already exploring how AI fits into your operations, this level of adoption is kind of a strong signal that now is the time. So this slide explores how people are using ChatGPT and whether it's mostly for work or for personal tasks. One of the most striking findings is that non-work usage has grown significantly. In June of 2024, about 53% of the messages were non-work related. And by June of 2025, that number jumped to 73%. So while ChatGPT is used for work, personal use is growing even faster. That said, work-related usage is still very important, especially among users who are highly educated and in professional roles. These users tend to use ChatGPT for writing, decision support, and information gathering, tasks that are common across like white-collar jobs. For small and medium-sized businesses, this means ChatGPT isn't just a productivity tool, it's like a personal assistant. That's kind of how I use it, that employees may already be using outside of work. Understanding both dimensions can help you shape policies around AI and identify opportunities to integrate it with your workflows. I think it's also worth noting that the shift towards non-work usage doesn't really mean that ChatGPT is less valuable for businesses. I think it suggests that people find it useful and trustworthy enough to use in their personal lives, which is strong endorsement of their capabilities. And with that, I will pass it over to Thomas, who will take the next few slides.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah, so in analyzing the study, one of the things that was discovered is that basically you can think of 3 different ways that ChatGPT has been used. And that's about 80% of all conversations fall into basically 3 broad categories. And these are going to be practical guidance, seeking information, and writing. And while these are pretty broad, they help kind of create some lanes that we can kind of better understand how to use ChatGPT and better understand how it's being used. So practical guidance includes things like tutoring, how-to advice, creative brainstorming. So this might be creating a marketing plan or how to create a product launch. One of the other things is seeking information. And this is, doing like product comparison, finding out how to do something that you may have been asked to do, learning definitions, things like that, especially if you're like new to onboarding to a company. And the other thing is writing, and that's very broad and going to include basically, creating emails, notes, plans, anything where we're basically asking, ChatGPT to actually create some verbal content there. And these basically show that most people are not using ChatGPT for like novelty purposes, like, hey, come up with a fairy tale story, but they're actually using for practical, relevant things that actually provide efficiencies within their work life and personal life. Next slide. All right, so this slide focuses on the first method, which is practical guidance. And this can include, a lot of things. So what we're finding is, as Justin mentioned, as people learn to trust AI more and ChatGPT, they're actually asking for more personal guidance on things from, how to run a marathon to how do I actually write a comprehensive, plan on pretty much anything, right? And so one of the things that ChatGPT provides versus your typical search engines is obviously a highly personalized response. And what it also allows you to do is actually create follow-up questions and provide kind of filters on your response as well. So instead of saying, hey, write just a general sales email or an email about AI, you can if you like it, you can, ask it to make it, more professional. You can ask it to make it, more funny, more reverent, or include, things like that as well. And, for what we're seeing in small, medium businesses, this allows you to automate a lot of tasks that you otherwise may have spent, hours on. And it also allows you to validate some of the things that you may, kind of be wondering about and kind of see how they run within the environment there. It's also good for training and onboarding as well. So, when you're in a new environment, you may be worried about, asking, what does this mean? Or what's that acronym? So, we're seeing a lot of people just, ask very basic things that they would not be typically comfortable asking directly to a person, but they're happy to ask a computer. Next slide, please. All right. And then one of the biggest ways, and probably the most thought of, and the area that we kind of need to do, take a grain of salt, is going to be the seeking information. And that's, asking about products, asking about specific facts, asking about processes, anything like that. And what we want to do when we're talking about ChatGPT, and it's gotten greater, but we want to use everything as basically a framework and use it also almost as like an assistant, but you want to validate their work. So you also want to take that into a cost benefit analysis and a time consideration. So if you're going to ask ChatGPT to automate something that you are going to have to validate, and it's going to take you that same amount of time, you probably just want to kind of cut that ChatGPT and the middleman out and just kind of continue to do things the traditional way. One of the other ways that we're seeing, it become a ChatGPT become helpful is in like the customer service information. I actually was on with a customer service representative today who looked up a specific piece of information. The company I was working with got bought out. They didn't know it, but they were able to look up ChatGPT, and it was able to provide them with next steps and everything like that. So I thought that was very informational. All right. And for the next slide. All right. And so here we are talking about the writing task. And what we're seeing is that this is accounting for about 40% of all tasks. Obviously, ChatGPT can write something a lot quicker than most humans. So what we're seeing is it typically used for like editing, summarizing documents. Translation is also very popular as well. Um, but one of the things that we've was found interesting is that 2/3 of the text provided is going to be user generated. So people are using ChatGPT as a tool to help better their works as opposed to using it as an original content creator. So there definitely are people out there, using it as the quote unquote original, to actually create content. But what we're seeing most is that people are actually using it to help kind of tailor or write things in a different way or help people see a different perspective. All right. And go to the next step for me there. And so one of the kind of interesting things where we are not seeing ChatGPT used as much is in things like computer programming and self-expression, which I thought was kind of interesting. Computer programming is, literally, help me write a script, help me with coding, things like that. Self-expression is more like um, self-introspection, um, personal reflection, role play, things like that. And they're finding that, again, they're not engaging as much as it. And I think that's one area that you'll actually see increased, especially if there's like an increase in gamification as it relates to education and learning. Because I think that's something where ChatGPT could provide some pretty big efficiencies and everything like that. And then, yeah, one of the other things that we also see is, education there. And that is one we want to take a grain of salt with. Obviously, when we're getting any information or educating ourselves through an AI enabled bot, we always want to make sure that we're kind of validating that information. Next slide. All right. All right, and so this slide introduces a helpful framework for understanding how people interact with ChatGPT by categorizing their intent into 3 types: asking, doing, and expressing. And asking is the most common type of interaction, making up of about 49% of all messages. And these are, basic queries um, seeking information, advice, clarification. So like, what's the best way to manage cash flow? How do I create a marketing budget? And these are usually decision supported queries, and they're usually in knowledge intensive roles. The second thing is going to be doing, which accounts for about 40% of all the messages. And these are task oriented, like drafting a report, analyzing the report, writing code, creating an email, creating an actual marketing campaign, as opposed to, just how do I make it? So a lot of times what we're seeing is, the asking is then going to be followed by the doing. And then what is surprising is that there's, only about 11% actually sharing or expressing. And that's usually like actually engaging with the model by sharing feelings and feedbacks, which we generally do with people, but not with the AI model, which we'll see will probably extend more as the model gets more advanced. I'm going to send things over to Scott now. Scott, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to explore is work-related activities. So this slide is going to dive deeper into the types of work task ChatGPT is helping users with. And the findings are especially relevant for small to medium-sized business when you look to improve productivity across teams. The researchers mapped ChatGPT usage job activities using the US Department of Labor's ONET framework. And they found that 81% of work-related messages fall into 2 broad categories. And that's obtaining and documenting, as well as making decisions and giving advice. These are core functions in nearly every job. And whether you're in sales, operations, HR, or management, these tasks are a part of your daily workflow, and ChatGPT is used to support them. What's especially interesting is that these patterns are consistent across different occupations. So whether you're in STEM, legal, finance, they're using ChatGPT for similar types of roles. So this means ChatGPT can be a cross-functional tool. It's not just for tech teams or executives, it's for anyone who needs to write, research, analyze, or solve problems. If you're using Microsoft Copilot, which is powered by ChatGPT, you have those capabilities already integrated into apps like Word, Excel, and Outlook, bringing the strengths of AI to your team's workflow. Next thing we want to highlight is the quality of interactions. So this slide, it's really going to highlight how users perceive the quality of their interactions with ChatGPT. And the results are pretty encouraging for business, considering AI adoption over time. So the number of good interactions has grown significantly, outnumbering bad interactions by 4 to 1. So this suggests that ChatGPT is becoming more and more helpful in the workspace. The study used an automated sentiment classifier to help evaluate the satisfaction based on follow-up messages. It also compared the results with direct user feedback, like thumbs up or thumbs down ratings. So if you're using emojis, it's taking those into account, like a smiley face or a frowny face, which I thought was wild. But asking messages where users seek advice or information are typically rated the highest in quality. This reinforces AI's strength as a decision support tool, especially in knowledge or intensive roles. I know for my Copilot instance, I have something called idea generator where I can just bounce things off of that particular agent. And it's honestly like talking to a person. So that's kind of wild. But, um, for the business use case, you can trust ChatGPT or whatever AI instance you're using to deliver reliable and useful responses, particularly when your team's using it to gather insights or classify complex topics. So covering the demographic trends, this slide is going to explore how ChatGPT usage evolved across different demographic groups and what that means for, business professionals. And one of the things that they found was when ChatGPT first launched, 80% of the users were typically male. But by mid 2025, that number dropped to 48%, with slightly more users identifying as female. This shows that generative AI is just becoming more widespread across the demographics. Now, one thing is nearly half of all of the messages that are sent on ChatGPT are sent by users under the age of 26. So this kind of reflects, the popularity of just downloading the app on your phone and running with it. And it's kind of a signal that younger employees may be, consistently using AI tools informally outside of work, which is very, very common. Global growth is typically the strongest in lower to middle income countries. And that just goes back to the accessibility point that Justin talked about earlier. Adoption has surged in regions with limited access to productivity tools, showing how AI fills a real gap in capability and affordability. So, where does that fit into in our space, especially as business professionals? ChatGPT is not just for tech-savvy professionals. It's being used by a wide range of people across different age groups and demographics. So if you're thinking about rolling out AI tools internally, consider how different teams might interact with these instances. This slide is going to explore education and occupation. So the first study found that typically users with desk jobs used ChatGPT more. And second, people in, I would say, roles like business management, engineering, or computer science use ChatGPT more frequently for work. So writing tasks are especially common in management roles, while technical help is more frequent in computer-related jobs. Even though the work usage varies by occupation, the types of tasks that people perform with ChatGPT are remarkably consistent. So again, right, ChatGPT or your AI instance, whether it's Microsoft Copilot or Claude, can be used to help increase cross-departmental collaboration because we're all basically using it for the same thing. So in terms of writing tasks, this research involved using a privacy-preserving methodology throughout the study. So no human ever viewed the content of the actual user messages, and all messages were de-identified and scrubbed of personally identifiable information. But for employment and demographic data, the study used a secure, clean data room, which means researchers could only run pre-approved aggregated queries. So what they found with the writing tasks is, again, going back to that point of people are still using it for the same thing. They're using it to draft emails, memos, reports, but the common theme here is that it's all being used in a similar way, regardless of department. So going back to how this relates to more of what Ontech does and how we can help you is we do a lot with Microsoft Copilot. And I wanted to cover how Microsoft Copilot connects to ChatGPT, which essentially powers the instance. Microsoft Copilot is built on OpenAI's GPT models, including GPT-4 and GPT-5. So I don't know if you guys have ever used Copilot before, but if you're leveraging one of the instances, sometimes you can see in the top right corner, use GPT-5. That's an option to turn on the more powerful model. Copilot brings the same intelligence and language capabilities directly to your Microsoft 365 apps. And it's also integrated with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Teams, meaning that your team can use AI to draft emails, summarize documents, and generate presentations, and even generate follow-up notes on meetings. So what makes Copilot really powerful, especially for your business, is that you can get an integrated instance where it will sync with everything. So if you want it to pull data to make a graph, it's going to take what you have in your environment and make a graph based on your own company's data. If it's a paid instance, it's going to be private, meaning that data stays within your company. Typically, a free instance is public. So keep in mind, if you're putting something into a free instance of an AI tool, you're putting that data out there for everyone else to see, or you're putting it out there for the AI to learn and grow with. So, think about, does it make sense for me to get a paid instance of AI versus a free one? But what makes Copilot especially powerful is that it's context aware. So again, going back to using your organization's data, a lot of the results are pulled from your org's files. Copilot is also designed with enterprise-grade security and privacy. So your data does stay within your 365 environment and is not used to train public models if you're on a paid version. So. Some of the practical benefits is, Copilot for us, we use it every day to help automate repetitive tasks. We'll definitely use it to summarize meeting notes and analyze spreadsheets. We even used it for full transparency, help with, putting this presentation together. We asked for summary help and extracting key information that we thought that people would want to hear. So also, it's going to mean that you and your team, they're not going to need to learn a new tool when they access AI support right inside Word, Excel, and Outlook. So that's kind of going to decrease training times if you're onboarding someone new, which is great because then they can get off and running faster. But some of the sources cited in this slide, the links are in here, so we'll provide the deck to you guys. You can click on them and read a little bit more about how we got this information. But so in conclusion, ChatGPT's impact, it's broad, it's growing, it's seen extraordinary global adoption with over 700 million weekly users. The second thing is the most common use cases are going to be practical guidance, writing, and seeking information. And they're definitely relevant to what you guys are doing day to day. Third, Copilot, it's going to bring ChatGPT into more of a business-related environment. With its integration with tools like Word, Excel, and Outlook, it's going to make it easy for your team to access AI support. And ChatGPT and Copilot are designed with privacy and security in mind. So your business data is protected once you're using like a private instance. And finally, the technology is going to offer some very heavy scale capabilities without scaling headcount. It's like giving every employee a smart assistant and helping them work faster, communicate better, and make smarter decisions. So generative AI, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And really, it's going to be up to us to develop policy as to how we want it rolled out via our company and also how we're going to use it going forward. We do a lot with cybersecurity here at Ontech, and we always say that cybersecurity is a top-down initiative. It's got to be bought into at the leadership level. AI policy is the same way. You have to have leadership buy-in and consensus on what you want to use it for, and then you begin to roll it out to everyone and make sure everyone is on the same page. So, but thank you guys for joining on this Tuesday morning. And like I said, we will get you guys a copy of the presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat or email us.